Hi, everyone. Welcome to my very brief GitHub workshop. Hopefully this will help you go from not having GitHub installed all the way through to using GitHub for very basic functions like pushing and pulling. First, we're going to cover installation and configuration, and then we're going to get into some basic functions. So first, ahead of the workshop, we are sending out these installation and configuration instructions, which you see here. This is the same little worksheet that you're going to get. And so for installation, there's these handy guides. So this is on the GitHub website. On how to install Git. There's command line options, and there's also installer wizards that you can use. One thing I would do is check that you actually have GitHub installed. And one way that you can do this is by using your terminal or command line. And you just type git version into your terminal, and then you should have information on your version. So you can see here I have version 2.4.3. And then so go through those steps for the installation. And if you are having any issues with that, then please contact me. You have my contact information. And then in the next section, we're going to cover configuration and setting up your personal access tokens. Okay, so once you have Git installed on your computer, now we need to set up the configuration so that Git installed on your computer can communicate with your GitHub account. So you're going to need a GitHub account to do this step. So make one of those if you haven't already. And so I'm in Chrome here. So github.com. And so this is my landing page for my GitHub account. You can see I've got various projects that are private and public. And this is my username. And so you're going to need to create a username and an email account, or and tie it with an email account that you have. And then so to configure, you're going to need those two pieces of information. Sorry about that. Go back to the GitHub tutorial guide that we sent out. And you're going to use this little bit of code here. So using the use this package. And so I'm going to go into R now. I'm going to share. Oh, sorry about that. Zoom issues, classic. Okay, so we are in R here, our studio. And so I'm going to do library use this. I'm also going to do the same for the Git creds package, which we're going to use shortly. So please install both of these packages on RStudio. So then we're going to use this use git config function. And so you're going to designate your username. That is going to be, for me on my GitHub, is this SD Strauss. And then also the email that you have associated with your username. And so when you run this, it's going to basically set up this connection between your GitHub account and your computer. And then, so that's the first step. And then recently GitHub has introduced what are called personal access tokens, which is kind of like a second line of security. And so once again, using the use this package, we're going to call the create GitHub token function. And this is going to take us to GitHub, confirm our access, and it'll take us to creating a personal access token. You can also do this. You can get to the same page in a different way, which I'm also going to demonstrate here. So this is your GitHub landing page. I'm going to go up to here to settings. down to developer settings, personal access tokens, classic, and generate new token classic. And so now this is the same page that we're at here. Although this one kind of like automatically checks the important like workflows here. I honestly don't know what a lot of these do, just like the defaults are fine. And so we're just gonna say this is a test token for 90 days. You can set it to no expiration, but that kind of defeats the purpose of having another line of security, especially if you're dealing with any type of sensitive data. And so I'm going to create this token. And then you only have access to this once. So only copy it, only do this step when you're ready, and then copy it. We're going to come back over into our studio, and now we're going to be using the Get Creds package. And super easy, Get Cred set. I'm just going to replace my token so you can see how this looks. Enter new token, so I'm just pasting in that key and it's done. We can also use this to view our token so we can see, oops. Then you can, there's also the Get Cred Get. And this just shows you if you have a personal access token associated with your account. So when you have those two pieces of information, or those two configuration steps done, this use get config and our get cred set, now you are ready to use GitHub through our studio or any other type of interface. And so next we are going to demonstrate what that looks like. Using GitHub and our studio together, this is really where our projects shine. I never really used our projects until I started using GitHub as well. And so I'm going to demonstrate how to link GitHub with our studio using our projects. So I'm going to do new project, and using version control. And I'm going to use Git. Going back to my GitHub repository page, you click on this green code button and you can copy your repository link info, your URL, which you can then just paste right in here. And I'm going to call it GitHub demo. And I want it to be, you can choose where you put your GitHub project. I like to put all of my GitHub projects together in a GitHub folder. And so I'm going to create my project. And now it's cloning my GitHub repository from online into R. And you'll notice once this loads, we now have a new feature. Of course, it's taken a minute. Okay, now over here, we have this Git panel, which we did not have before. Okay, so now I'm going to make a change to this repository and then push the change from my local repository on my computer to my remote repository on GitHub. And so I'm just going to create a folder called scripts. Now you can see I have this folder here in my file structure. I'm just going to create a file which is going to go inside this new folder. This is a test file. I'm going to save it. So now you see in this Git panel, we have now that we have something in our folder, it is showing up, and we've got this test. We're also going to add our GitHub demo, our project, to our remote repository. And then there's also this git ignore file. These are super handy. For example, if you've got large files that you don't want to upload to Git or GitHub every time. And so, for example, I like to create a designated figures folder. And these figures can sometimes be pretty large file sizes. And I will tell this git ignore folder or file to ignore my figures folder, because the code that I have can make all of those figures anyway. I don't need to be storing those on GitHub. Okay, so I'm going to click commit here, and it's going to come up with this new window. And you want to create a like a short and concise commit message using action verbs, and commit messages are required. And so I'm going to say created test script in new script folder. Commit. And it says, okay, I changed 3 files and I made insertions on 18 lines. And now that I've done that, I can press this push button. And this is pushing to my GitHub account. And if we go back to GitHub, we can now see, if I refresh, we now have these changes are now reflected in our remote repository. So I'm going to make another change directly in GitHub. Oh my gosh. Live coding is a challenge sometimes. Bear with me. Scripts. Test. There we go. And so you can edit these text-based files directly in the GitHub web app as well. So this is a change. And sometimes on the GitHub desktop app and on the web browser app, sometimes you have like automatic commit messages. It's still a good idea to use your own descriptive action verb based messages. So made a change to a line. Commit changes. Okay, so now we have this new change is committed, but it's not reflected here. And so we're going to press this pull button, and now we see it reflected. Okay, so this is how you do basic pushes and pulls in RStudio, but there are other apps that we can also use. So I personally actually prefer the GitHub desktop app. I think it's super handy. It does a lot of the stuff that you can do in RStudio, and it can even do a little bit more. And I just think it's really user-friendly, maybe a little bit more even than RStudio for basic everyday functions. Okay, so this is what the desktop app looks like. I'm just gonna zoom in so you can see. I'm gonna add a new repository. It's already on my computer, so I'm just going to add the existing repository. You can also clone it as before. So as you can see, I have other GitHub demos that I've done. We're just going to open up this one and add our repository. And now you can see our history of changes. Okay, but I'm going to make another change. I'm going to delete this line. Okay, so you can see the changes here. We can also see the changes in our other application, the GitHub desktop application, and deleted third line. And we can push. Okay. Back to our web browser. And we can see that the line has now been deleted. And so it works the same. We can do the same thing that we did before. Commit our changes. And now, okay, it says that basically our remote origin is one commit ahead from our local. And so we can pull, and this is one of the reasons that I prefer personally the GitHub desktop, is that it's a little bit more interactive and it just like gives you a little bit more information about the state of your various repositories. And going back to R, and you can see now that this is reflected. And so those are basic workflows, pushing, pulling, and commits. This is 95% of what you're going to be doing in GitHub, and we would like you to feel comfortable using these functions before the start of our workshop. Okay, hopefully you found this primer on using GitHub useful. Please don't hesitate to contact the organizers if you've got any questions or issues, if you're having installation problems, if you're having problems with your personal access token, any of those types of things, please do not hesitate to reach out. We are happy to help get everybody on board with using GitHub so that we can hit the ground running on day one. Awesome. Well, thank you for your time and good luck with everything.